desperado. Why don't you?
There you go, Charles. I've almost got this musical interlude
There you go.
opening down. We have our new countdown timer so people aren't sitting there wondering what happened as we begin. But today we are inspired by the Fast and Furious series and, of course, the Injurious 7, a despicable group.
Yeah, I mean, this is, first of all, hats off once again to the vaunted underpaid art department, overworked. But I love this for many reasons. And the first important point that I hope our audience will take away is that though our government spends all in $6 trillion and involves hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, when you count private contractors and stuff like that, the moral to the story of what actually happened from 1988 to the present is that a very limited number of bad actors close to or even over the levers of power can really sail the ship of state of America way off course and get away with it.
Bad actors like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
No, bad actors like, red wine faced Bill Clinton. Right.
His nose, that I did not modify in any way. It looks like a lot of Mena, Arkansas activity went up that nose.
A lot of product testing. Exactly. But seriously, that I don't think the founders, when they thought through what might happen with our government, envisaged, first of all, that America would be as intertwined and involved internationally as it now is, and that business would grow to dominate activity. Back then, it was a farming nation.
Yeah, right. Corporations almost couldn't even be envisioned, certainly not to the scale we've reached.
Right, and in that mentality, there's a lot of great writing on it, in particular by Thomas Jefferson, and I'll put in a plug for my former father-in-law who's got a book coming out on farming. He's an eminent historian. On farming life, and we're so far away from farming. You go to a farm-to-table restaurant and you think you know what farming is, right? But
I do like that farm-to-table.
I'm sure you do. but back then, your wealth, if you were a farmer, your livelihood was utterly at the mercy of nature, and you could do everything that you thought you were going to do right with planting and with crop selection and all this kind of stuff, and out of the blue comes
bad weather,
freak flood or a freak whatever. And so that way of living, I think, imbued the early Americans with a sense of humility, because your life was really at the mercy of forces that you could never hope to control, and reverence for some sort of higher power. And
but now you can get organic blueberries in December, Charles.
We could probably get them right now. Just probably, who knows what you could get just going online 10 seconds from now or a minute from now.
Go downstairs and hit up Jeff Bezos.
Whatever you want. But so that we're going a little philosophical here, but the scientific revolution, which obviously started before America, but the scientific revolution gave rise, I think, to this breed of people like you see on the screen here, who believe that they are, more powerful and more entitled than ever to tell the rest of us exactly how high to jump, and to steal as much as they might want to steal, and it's all for your better good because there's so many dark evils out there. You have no ability to understand what we, the ennobled leaders of the deep state and the political system, are doing to protect you. I mean, you don't want to ask us, really what we're protecting you from, because you wouldn't be able to understand it.
Yeah, the lack of oversight is crazy.
Right. So we find ourselves in this place, and I had sort of an epiphany the other day or so thinking about this. We'll get into a little bit of the detail later, but we know for certain, we have it from multiple sources, that the National Security Agency in this country, and I'm sure there's similar agencies around the world, have already vacuumed up every single keystroke on every computer in the United States of America, going back to, I believe the year is 2004. It may have been earlier than that, but let's take 2004 as the year. What does that mean? That means that the NSA in real time, beginning whenever it was that Hillary started and Bill started messing around with their foundation,
Yeah.
engaging in public corruption around the world, it means that in real time, the NSA must have known about this corruption.
Yeah.
And we can go back to 2004 and say they knew about it then. Certainly by March of 2009, when the new server was installed in Chappaqua and in Whitehaven, certainly by then, the NSA knew everything. So why didn't they stop it then? We have this issue of, with Trump and the campaign, we're spying for your own good, right? On the so that's why we put this. Okay, so if the policy is to spy for your own good, and the NSA had been watching, people had been watching Bill Clinton's frauds escalate. It was, for Christ's sake, it was under investigation by the FBI between 2001 to 2005. It's not like you didn't know that maybe you should have done something about it. And we know from that FBI vault file that there was a grand jury opened up in New Orleans in 2009. Okay, we know it's there. Without comment, there's a grand jury subpoena on the vault file.
And it's against the law for anybody in the grand jury to talk about it, right?
I believe so, yeah. But the point is, what my narrow point here is that the NSA certainly, people in the NSA certainly knew the full scope and extent of this fraud, yet they did nothing about it.
Admiral Rogers.
Well, but they still have done nothing about it. So why would you ever do that? I mean, could it be that there are crooked people in the NSA who said, this is fantastic. Now we have the President of the United States, former President of the United States, and an aspiring President of the United States, and Barack Obama for that matter, and Jarrett and others, covering up crimes instead of punishing them. They're guilty of obstruction of justice. That means they can't touch us.
Right, they got them over a barrel.
And we have them over a barrel, and we want to keep this party going.
Charles, somebody just brought to my attention that in addition to the Five Eyes that we've heard quite a bit about, there is also, there's the 9 eyes, there's the 14 eyes. They got eyes all over the place on this thing. And I didn't even know about the Five Eyes until pretty recently, but the 9 eyes involves Denmark, France, the Netherlands, and Norway. Yeah,
our friend from Norway told me about it.
And then 14 eyes, apparently Edward Snowden leaked a thing about the SSEUR.
Well, let's think about this for a second. I mean, if you're Germany and Italy, which are big economies in Europe, wouldn't you be a little bummed that you're only in the 14 eyes? I mean, shouldn't you be in the Five Eyes?
But it just becomes this national, we've always heard everybody talking about the New World Order and everything. If you've got all these intelligence agencies linked, who the hell are they spying for? I thought the idea is our intelligence agency is taking care of the United States, but if they're in cahoots with all these other countries, it becomes the governments versus the people, right?
Well, so I think if you go back in time, Rothschild, I believe, made their initial fortunes using, what are they called? Pigeons. To send homing pigeons to send behind battle lines to send information back about the true state of and they were able to cast wagers and whatever, and they had information before the others did. So information has long been an important weapon, or you could say advantage, in the business world, and that's where I think this is so insidious. That what happened after September 11th, 2001, it just so happened that information technology was advancing rapidly.
Yeah.
We'd had the internet bubble, and people were negative on it, but that didn't stop people from starting to connect via broadband. Once people started doing that, penetration was high.
But also remember, it wasn't really until 2006, only 5 years after September 11th, that the smartphone and that revolution occurred.
But before then, people were connected to broadband, and around 2002, 3, 4, in that time frame, and they were able, off of home computers principally, less on laptops, they were able to get tremendous amounts of information. In addition, the intelligence services were on the other side of it. They could get tremendous information about you.
Yeah.
And when you think about investing and building businesses, the value of understanding what your competitor may be up to is people will pay, they shouldn't be doing it, but they'll pay tremendous amounts of money to get a leg up on the competition. And now suddenly these boffins in the NSA, in the One Eye, in the Five Eyes, the 14, and the 9, whatever, suddenly these functionaries, instead of looking at cashing out on a $65,000 pension, whatever it is, at the end of, say, 25, 40 years, suddenly you have a chance of going into these burgeoning, Hacklet and things like that, Kroll, other things like that. Suddenly you're incredibly marketable. And equally you're marketable to the law firms, to the investment firms. And there has been we talk about the need for an SEC, and we talk about the need for looking after the odious big banks and stuff like that. What you really need as well is regulation of how much information is captured,
the data,
by the government. How is that government's data stored? Who in the private contractors has access to that data? And I think we have in this odious group here proof positive of the dangers and the degrees to which people, every single one of the people on this page, I would argue, does not have a moral compass, doesn't understand the difference between right and wrong, never had a parent stand up and say, listen, you can't do that. Why not? Because it's wrong. I'm not going to debate whether it's right or it's wrong. It's wrong and you can't do it. None of these people ever had effective training in that department. And that's why I think what happened under the Obama administration is Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, and now she's getting all sorts of kudos or whatever for the Roseanne Barth comment, which of course was wrong. But that doesn't, just because a sitcom movie star makes a bad mistake, that does not immunize
what she's done.
That does not immunize 8 years under Barack Obama, and who knows what she was doing under Harold Washington and other people in Chicago. 8 years of criminal behavior. It does not immunize you from that.
No, definitely not. And Charles, many boffins died to obtain the Death Star plan. So.
Exactly. But seriously, this is a great poster, and I hope this will become, I don't know, a mug at least.
Yeah, I got to get back on the mug, making. There haven't been that many people really going to redbubble.com and purchasing Crowdsource the Truth swag. There are a lot of nice mugs on there, and any of the artwork on there can be gotten on a mug or a t-shirt or a cell phone case. Actually, the thing I wanted to say about cell phones is that everything that you're saying about data is absolutely correct, but of course the advent of the smartphone and the mobile broadband, and everyone's talking now about 5G. I mean, data is all around us at all moments, and the power of the cell phone that we each carry in our pockets. I remember there was an article a few years after the iPhone came out, or maybe like 1 or 2 years after the iPhone came out, comparing the original iPhone to the original iMac, which had come 10 years prior, and every specification of the iPhone was, higher resolution screen, more memory, faster processor, more storage,
cheaper.
And that's in your pocket, and cheaper. And now the phone that you have versus the original 2006 phone is incredibly more powerful. I was in Washington, D.C. with Larry Klayman last week, and I was getting a mobile broadband signal. So, when you had dial-up, I don't even want to get into the math, but the mobile broadband signal that I got in the middle of Washington, D.C. was 125 megabits per second on a cell phone. I mean, that's like HD video. You could do 4K real time, so much data coming over thin air. It's staggering.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And it'll only get, in theory, better. But the government is not being honest with us. We think back, and there's a shock, but you think back to when the revelations out of Snowden came out, and Barack Obama said many times, the government is not spying on you. Remember that one?
Well, didn't he also say that it was impossible to rig the election, and now they've spent every day since then talking about how the Russians rigged the election?
I mean, it's just do as I say,
not as I do.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh. Well, here, we find ourselves now displaying the handy playlist for Sunday with Charles. And of course, today is the day, Charles, that you are closing in, but we've sort of put all of the Charles Ortel related content in this playlist. So anyone looking to actually prosecute the Clintons can come here and have really a sort of a one-stop shop for prima facie evidence of fraud. It's really hard to argue with any
Right.
of the stuff that you bring up.
Well, what's also interesting is that if there were an argument, you would have heard it by now.
I
it's-
would think so.
I mean, it's not like this is our 78th video. I think you've got 77 up there.
Something like that.
And I know that if people had done 77 videos about me on a subject where they were wrong,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have gotten to video 2.
Right.
I mean, it was. I would just say, listen, that you're wrong for this, and that reason.
Right.
And I think, note to Inspector General Horowitz, I have every reason to believe that your work is going to be first rate, judging by the work that was done at McCabe. But I would caution that I will know whether you've gotten to the heart of the matter here, because there's a tremendous amount in the public domain that explains exactly what Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were pressurizing the Obama administration to cover up, and then, having covered it up, why Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett and the Obama people are so desperate to ensure that Donald Trump doesn't expose the degree to which they obstructed justice with regard to the Clinton Foundation beginning January 20, 2009, and then the way they subverted our democracy, or attempted to do it, from July 10th, 2015 at the latest, when the investigation into Hillary mishandling classified information started, and while they encouraged Hillary to run for office. They don't want the American public to know that.
Right.
So, Inspector General Horowitz's team, there's a lot out there, and we're going to go through some of what we expect to see in your report, and if we don't see it in your report, we'll know you're holding out on us, and we've just got to redouble our efforts. We'll have to go to one daily instead of twice a week.
Exactly. Well, Charles, Scott Bennett is going to be with me on Friday. And Scott, in our last interview, he wrote the book Shell Game, and he was a whistleblower. He knew Edward Snowden. He worked at Booz Allen
Really?
Hamilton. And he has said, I want to ask him about this some more when we speak on Friday. He has said that Horowitz is somehow tied to the Union Bank of Switzerland, and he expects full swamp. The other thing I wanted to tell you was that Periscope is telling me that the Five Eyes is using the NSA to frame citizens in America. And certainly we see that happening in the case of Donald Trump. We see that happening in my case with, I don't know if it's the Five Eyes, but people keep resurrecting these stupid fake stories that are a year old that they caused and try to blame on me. So there's a lot of parallels in how these operations work, and it's very transparent if people really look at them.
Well, and this is where, I'm all for respecting different cultures and different nations and stuff like that. But when I start hearing about how Europe is going to, lecture the United States, all I think about is World War I and World War II. That's what you did for us so far. And this new project, the European Union, is a disaster. And so I don't really care terribly much what the Europeans have to say about America. I just, I don't, what are you going to do? Create some additional new mess that we're going to have to bail you out of again? Why don't you just pay up your share of NATO and, stop encouraging these people to come, these radical Islamists to come out of the Middle East and settle in your decrepit cities with your bureaucracies all over on top of them. Why don't you get that right and stop criticizing us and forget about meddling inside our economy, because that ain't going to happen.
Right. I think Merkel is too busy buying up all the Chairman Mao pantsuits that Hillary leaves.
Not a good look.
No.
The woman in pants is not a good look.
So Charles, we've got your PDF presentation ready here.
Thank you, sir. Looks very crisp and clean. But really, I think the mainstream and the lapdogs, an idiot, what's his name? Meet
Jake
the Press.
Tapper.
Well, fake yapper, but the other guy, Meet the Press.
Who does that one?
What's the guy? Is it Chuck Todd? Dopey
Chuck
Chuck Todd.
Yeah.
Sleepy-eyed Chuck Todd.
He's a winner. They should put him and Rachel Maddow and all of them in one show.
They should do what they need to do. I put them on one project, and actually, it's a fair. I take back some of what I said about Europe. Europe is actually, they're introducing a regulation I'm in favor of, which is to ban the use of plastic
Bags?
Not just bags, sippy cups, straws.
No plastic at all?
Well, because the problem with it, my middle brother is a sailor, sailed many places, ocean sailing, says that when you go to these remote islands, it's just incredible the amount of plastic that is now in the ocean. And so a good mission for sleepy-eyed Chuck Todd and what's her name, Rachel Madcow and all those people, get in a leaky boat and go out there and get all the plastic out of the ocean. And after you've done that, let me know what you think, because that'll take you a good 200 years to do.
Wasn't there some Dutch kid who invented some kind of autonomous boat that goes around sucking up garbage? Why not just have 1,000 of those drive around all the time?
1,000? You need like, there's a lot of this stuff in the ocean, a lot.
But if you had something the size of a freight barge, whatever, that was just sucking in garbage and but then where do you put it?
Send it to outer space, I don't know.
Then space will be full of garbage. It already is. You can look at that NASA map of space junk. It's a threat to Sandra Bullock, apparently.
So today, what we're going to talk about here, I think we are very close to finding out what truly did happen. And here we are, it's May 30th, 2018. Imagine for you, I don't want to give you nightmares, but imagine if Hillary Clinton were in fact the President of the United States.
I think we'd be at war in Syria and ready to nuke North Korea.
We might not be alive. I think we'd be, at best, we'd be turning big rocks into medium-sized rocks in some prison. And I don't know.
You and I,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Exactly. That's true.
But they came really close to sinking this republic. I mean, you go and I have a certain amount of I have a big sympathy for people who are trying to lessen adverse impact on our great country, its environment. And you think about the election process, the 2015-2016 cycle. How many damn speeches and crowd gatherings were there of Republicans and Democrats in all 50 states over the course of 24 months or 18 months or whatever it took? Why did we bother with that? I mean, Hillary rigged the primaries. I mean, why did Bernie Sanders waste all of the money and time that he wasted, and his supporters all the money, getting together, driving their cars, sitting out there in stadiums that were either heated or cooled or outdoors? Why did we go through all that? This is the environmental crowd, when you knew that Hillary was going to be cheating and she was going to be the nominee. And then what possessed the President of the United States, Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, to think that it was okay to try to rig the general election? And then having lost, I mean, Hillary Clinton couldn't even win a rigged election.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that tell you about?
Pretty weak.
I mean, it's not the person you want to, go out there negotiating with Pooty Poot, because that's not going to go well. You're not going to rig that one.
Pooty pie.
Yeah, Pooty pie.
I think the environmental problem is a complicated one, Charles, because I'm definitely for getting rid of pollution and things in the water and the air and all that. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine in Trump-hating Central California the other day, and he was like, coal and polluting the rivers. And it's like, right, but if North Korea EMPs California, that also will have a tremendously negative environmental impact. And if the economy fails, it's going to be like Mad Max out in the street next week. You're not going to care what happens to a river or some fish in 30 years. So there's this triage process that's possibly much more complicated than we're easily able to understand.
Well, and nature isn't benign either. One of the lessons I learned from trying to put together a big international forestry fund is that when you get into the facts, forget about and I mean with real scientists, not these Al Gore
scientists.
Devotees and Michael Moore and people like that, and Hollywood celebrities. But when you look at real facts, when there is a natural disaster like this volcano going off in Hawaii,
way worse.
I mean, the amount of the volume of noxious, toxic elements that get spewed into the atmosphere is so much worse than the beneficial impact. I'm not saying we shouldn't do what we're trying to do and lessen bad emissions, but nature is to say that if man just disappeared, the planet would be clean is foolishness.
Yeah.
I mean, lightning causes forest fires, right? You're not going to stop lightning.
Right.
And you're not going to necessarily stop, unless the world becomes a desert, you're not going to stop trees from growing. So chances are they're going to be forest fires. And you know, if you leave these forests where they're, you know, just to grow and not be trimmed out, they're going to be more debilitating as opposed to what, you know, used to happen. Indeed, the Indians, there's stories which, you know, are actually amazing. To alleviate, to lessen the risk of forest fires, they had controlled burning going
Native
way back.
Americans.
Absolutely.
That's pretty smart of them.
Well, and you can see that there's one of my favorite books is 1491. It's a fantastic book, and it goes back and imagines what America was like, and you know, North America was like prior to contact with Columbus and his people. Very interesting.
But on the flip side, stuff like Fukushima is pretty bad.
Fukushima is, and of course, you know, I have many nice friends in Japan, but if fraud is the national sport of India, covering up and lying is the national sport of Japan. They cannot admit when there's something bad. They will not do it. And so this Fukushima thing is certainly worse than the Japanese are telling you.
Oh yeah. It's probably the worst environmental disaster in history.
Yeah.
And with that,
we'll move into slide 2, which is our standard disclaimer. And here, you know, to those of you watching this internationally, you might want to consider bugging your politicians to getting the equivalent of a First Amendment.
tapping their wires, you mean?
Yeah. Well, we do have the protection, one at considerable sacrifice by our founding fathers and supported by their wives, mothers, slash mothers. We do have a First Amendment. And while there
founding mother-in-laws?
And we therefore have the right to express our opinion. We do it based on, we try to be very careful in our research. Again, I encourage people who want to contact me, they can do so on my site, or they can DM me on Twitter. And if you see something that you believe is not accurate or could be better expressed, you have some constructive suggestions, please send them my way. I would say that this now marks, today's the 78th broadcast, and I guess it's probably well over 150 hours of programming, and not once has anybody from the Clinton Foundation bothered to say, hey, you know, you made a mistake here. That's because I haven't. But anyway, so that's how you can reach me on Twitter there. I've noticed, Jason, and I think you've noticed the same thing.
Yeah.
For a number of days, I was getting, 200-300 followers a day. Mm-hmm. And now as I approach this magic, 30,000 level, yesterday I was up at 29,902 or 904. This morning I was 29,877. I see it is inching up now, but it just doesn't want to go up into 30,000 for some reason. And I wonder, and I suspect that Twitter does, like Google and Facebook, mess with counts and trends, and we should have a better understanding of how that works.
That's what I was going to say. I'd like to understand that as well, because, Charles, I think a lot of people might know that the original Crowdsource the Truth YouTube channel, which was my YouTube channel from back in the day when I was just watching YouTube videos, so it's actually technically called Jason Goodman. So this channel grew to about 58,000 subscribers in just about a year. And then it received 2 strikes on some Ole Damagard videos that disabled first live streaming and then uploading of any videos whatsoever. So I just left this channel alone and created Crowdsource the Truth 2, but simply on the basis of the fact that it had so many hundreds of videos, people kept coming to the channel and it kind of creeped up to 58,950 subscribers. And when I was in New Zealand meeting with Harmon Wilfred and various people there, the first strike got resolved and I was able to upload. So many people noticed that I was uploading all of the videos that had been created between the time the channel was disabled and then. And so by adding like a dozen extremely popular videos, it wasn't like I changed the subject of what we were covering. it lost 500 subscribers, went down to 58,400, and has been inching up over the days and weeks since I've been to New Zealand. And yesterday finally got back to 58,950, then went down again to 58,930, and now it's back at 58,970. So like your Twitter account, been hovering around, seemingly unable to reach that benchmark of 59 and then 60,000 as we move towards the magic 100,000 subscriber number. So hopefully people will continue to subscribe to the Jason Goodman channel, the original home of Crowdsource the Truth. And of course, after Crowdsource the Truth 2 got the strike, we've been doing our live broadcasts on 21st Century 3D's YouTube channel, another legacy channel I had from my Hollywood 3D production company. So it's very confusing for viewers, and it hurts our ability to have a consistent location where people can see the message. And that's another reason why the Sunday with Charles playlist becomes a really important resource for people who want to have one place to find all the videos and not have any disruption in their receipt of important Clinton Foundation fraud-related material and other stuff that we're covering on Crowdsource the Truth. The one last thing I want to say about it is that the other thing that people can do to avoid any problems in seeing the videos is that they can become Patreon subscribers, and we're inching towards the magical 400 patron number, and that really is the best way for people to support the channel and keep us going. You know, some of the people that have been, I suspect, involved in these malicious strikes have also been trying to intimidate people to prevent them from joining Patreon. I think we've spoken about how some unrelated party has now been making declarations in this fake lawsuit from somebody else. But that person has tried to make people feel fearful that going on to Patreon would give them some kind of legal exposure. Absolutely preposterous, not true, not correct.
Well, one thing I'd like to suggest, if people have time, and there's a big shout out to LaFleur Productions, is one person who's put up a wonderful site with a lot of interviews and presentations relative to the Clinton Foundation on it. One endeavor that would be very helpful to the cause now that we're closing in, there are 50 attorneys general. There is, you know, of course, Dopey James Sessions, Gumby James Sessions, whatever. But a lot of these people have Twitter handles.
Yeah.
And it would be a
Tweet
great
at them.
exercise, and it might be a follower building exercise to have Crowdsource the Truth people, and I implore you, if you've got the time, we've done a previous presentation where we give you all of the addresses, the Twitter handles for all of the attorney generals in the United States, state attorney generals. Just get on a program if you can, if you have the time, to tweet out to each attorney general the most recent show. If you've got more time, you know, go back the last 10 shows, send just, you know, Attorney General Josh Hawley in Missouri, watch this episode and explain to the Crowdsource the Truth community why you are not prosecuting the Clinton Foundation for fraud in your state. Same message to Pam Bondi in Florida, same message to Leslie Rutledge in Arkansas, same message to Barbara Underwood, the acting Attorney General in New York State. You know, that would really, we start getting those things, maybe there's a way to build an app where you could just, you know, you have 50 Attorney General addresses and then automatically, you know, the thing just starts sending out.
That's a genius idea. A prosecute the Clintons app.
Right.
That could be huge
Right.
in the
lock them up app.
Exactly,
Right.
in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Just one thing quick, I know we're yapping a lot, but one thing quick on Gumby, he's yoked in this, look at how jacked Gumby James Comey looks. His head is attached to Dwayne "The Rock"
Look
Johnson.
at his neck.
Yeah, he could be our next president. Not
Yeah.
Comey, of course,
Yeah.
but The Rock.
Yeah, I mean, this poster is unflattering to Bill, but makes up for it by being super flattering to Hillary, because that's definitely not how she looks in a skimpy.
No,
I wouldn't want to even think about what she looks like. But
No.
so let's go through the slides. We only have 3 today, but we've got quite a few links, and it's worthwhile taking some time on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing through the grapevine that having done exposing exposing complex frauds now for 11 years. You could take it that I have a number of contacts who are investigators, and I'm getting a lot of emails now, unsolicited emails and interest from people who are telling me that this is going really well, and
The
the
investigation.
investigation of the Clinton Foundation is going really well. And it makes sense to me. I mean, we know, for example, from press reports that October, November 2017, the Uranium One informant came forward with details, extensive details, proof that tens of millions of dollars were being laundered through the Clinton Foundation by 2009, and that the FBI knew about it. Okay, so we know that that person came forward back then. We know that that person, Mr. Campbell, got authority to testify, and we know, we believe that that person has met with the key FBI people and maybe with U.S. attorneys. So if that happened back in, let's say, January of this year, we're at May, and when you look at some of these other cases, when the FBI wants to act, and when the Department of Justice wants to act, they don't waste any time. If they see an obvious major crime where they can win and send a message, put a criminal away and send a message to society that you don't go there, they jump. I mean, look at the complaint against Corinne Brown. Look at the complaint.
How long did that take for?
Well, I don't know from the date the investigation started, but she was indicted 3 days after Dopey James Comey exonerated Hillary Clinton. Whatever, so I think it was July 8th, and in 2016. During the election, she was running it. She was indicted. She treated it probably the way the Clintons might treat. It's a joke, she's yelling at the judge and saying he was an idiot and I'll get you. That didn't work so well for Corinne, as she probably now understands, as she's on her, I don't know how manyth day of some horrible pea and lunch meat. Pea as in green pea, and lunch meat, like stale mashed potato dinners or whatever they get down there in that federal penitentiary.
The vineyard of American Standard.
Right. She's not getting any, she's not staying in a La Quinta Inn.
No.
So I'm hearing a lot of rumors that things are moving along pretty well. As a guess, this Horowitz report has been now read by a lot of people. It may have been leaked. A lot of times these reports come out, they're embargoed. They go to the press and you can't talk about them, but the press knows. And in this most recent piece that I did it actually several days before it was printed. If we go into it a little bit, Jason, there's a line, I just want to hit on it. If you go down a little bit, it says documents somewhere. Is there secular?
Suppress documents.
Documents, yeah. If we hit that documents link, please. I think we did this on Sunday as well. But this is extremely noteworthy. This is the first set of 339 pages that Jay Sekulow got. Remember, Jay is one of President Trump's personal attorneys, and he's not stupid. And he's got a real team here. So he gets this thing out. This is HOC. This is an interesting name, HOC Christmas. I don't know what that is. But anyway, this is an email, February 6, 2009.
Ho Christmas.
Christina Ho is her name. Maybe it's. But the thing that's interesting.
Oh, it says Ho Christina S. Not.
Oh, there you go, Christina S. Okay, there you go. Looks like M.
Yeah, that's funny. Ho Christmas. It should be ho Christmas.
Yeah. But anyway, this is an email, February 6, 2009. And why is this significant? Because Hillary's people claim that they didn't start sending emails over a private server in connection with the State Department until March of 2009. And the initial batch of 3,490 emails, which are supposedly all the work-related emails, were turned in on December 5th, 2014. Here's just the first one you see here. It's February 6, 2009. And there's a lot in here. Basically, in just this 339-page thing, there's a lot of emails where it seems very clear to me that what was going on is donors to the Clinton Foundation were basically using because they'd made a donation to the Clinton Foundation, they were then getting special access to the State Department and special favors. It's just the Clinton Foundation was the vehicle, and not just the Clinton Foundation, most especially the Clinton Global Initiative, which was nakedly an influence peddling scheme. It was not remotely a charity. It was never validly authorized. And here you have, in this set of emails, several email chains wherein people were being contacted prior to the legal existence of the Clinton Global Initiative, Inc., which came into existence on September 4th, 2009. Their emails, where Bill Clinton is thinking that it would be a good idea to have a forum. It says Bill and others were thinking that it was a good idea for a forum involving Northern Ireland. And, basically, I think when you go into this, you're going to discover, with eyes wide open, you're going to see now the emails that have been kept back, just like Hillary Clinton's keeping back the billing records, the Rose Law Firm, until the day after the statute of limitations on the crime. Same idea. You keep the stuff back and hope
Nobody sees it.
Well, hope that the statute of limitations may pass on the tax exposures that you have for running the Clinton Foundation as a for-profit bribery exercise, not as a foundation. I think these people believe that there's a 3-year statute of limitations and that they're covered.
But if it's RICO, there's no statute of limitations.
That's what lawyers tell me that, but beyond that, I believe, and people have been sending me a few emails, so I'll answer this, on the question of a foundation being deemed a for-profit corporation, there's no statute of limitations on that. You can go back in, the IRS has a right to go back in and say, hey, you were not actually a foundation beginning October 23rd, 1997, and yet you filed all these returns. Yeah, on those returns, the statute of limitations has passed. But where's your corporate income tax return? Because you didn't file one, there's no statute of limitations on that. So by the way, you're in deep.
Is hamana, is
Right.
that a legal response?
That's, yeah.
Charles, I want to ask you about this person who seems to be Christina S. Ho, the person in question, who was formerly the country director for the Clinton Foundation's China program. I would say very likely this is the person who's writing that email we were just looking at.
Well, and here's the problem. Now, I have a brilliant classmate from Yale who is an eminent professor on the Rutgers faculty, and I'll say to you now, you're probably not going to watch this, Perry. Perry Dane is his name, not
Perry Mason.
Not Perry Mason. He's a really brilliant. He was one of the smartest kids in our class, and he's a top professor there. Perry, I'm guessing that you check resumes. You might want to ask Professor Christina S. Ho how a foundation operates in China when it was never legally formed anywhere in the world. How do you get through the Chinese laws? And I have a contact in, not saying where, around China who has studied this. Chinese laws are very strict. The penalty for charity fraud in China is death.
Wow.
And they have meted, and the penalty for lots of things in China is death. But how, Christina, you're this brilliant professor of law. You look awfully young to be a professor of law. How did you operate in China? And what were you doing in China? Were you fighting HIV/AIDS? Because I think you were doing that. How did you do that, in coordination with a base in Massachusetts whose license as authority to operate was involuntarily revoked on March 31st, 2008, with effect from December 31, 2007? And Perry and the faculty of Rutgers, how do you let somebody who's a criminal teach law? Well, how does that work?
Yeah, see, this, Charles, is very interesting to me because this really, Quentin Michaels is always talking about patterns, and this really fits the pattern that you have pointed out, where somebody young,
right,
maybe who is starstruck by the Clintons or whatever, is given this important position, and I guess the natural tendency is to kind of overlook any possibility that there could be something wrong with this and just be like, oh, I'm going to be the head of the Clinton Chinese whatever. And that's how they convince them.
Well, and equally, there's this evil access. I've got an article coming out in something called the Boston Broadside, which is a magazine that our mutual friend John Boudreaux asked me to write for him. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And it's an article, we telegraphed it a little bit, that now that the Clinton Foundation charity fraud thing seems to be advancing, I started by addressing major corporate fraud, with General Electric and large multinationals. I moved into charity fraud, and the next assault is going to be against endowed educational institutions
Like
that are
Rutgers?
like Rutgers and others that are breaking the law. I mean, so you're sitting there as a Rutgers, or I've got I shouldn't confess this, but I will. My 40th college reunion starts tomorrow,
Oh, wow.
and you have
Are you going to go?
no.
Oh.
I can't. I mean, it's just I can't. It's
I
just,
still want to find out about all those skull and bonesmen.
you can go up there, man. Try to walk in, see what happens.
Beat me with Geronimo's femur.
But the point of it is that these endowed institutions, they look at dynastic political families and their networks of international connections, and nothing gets these universities more excited than thinking about having an international campus like
Right.
NYU and
Oh, yeah.
Yale in Singapore now, Yale also in China. Nothing gets them more excited than the notion that you can have a discipline which will let you, work in tandem with some foreign government
Right.
to do these gigantic projects, or better yet, the UN, some globalist scheme that lifts the profile of the university even higher, and allows these institutions to believe that they're going to be educating and training all these young leaders. And actually, I was watching this with my middle brother and his son, youngest son. We were watching this weekend on Memorial Day, Yale beat Duke, which was amazing. I mean, in lacrosse, Division I, so they're the national champions, Yale. And when I went to Yale 40+ years ago, I mean, the notion that we would win a national championship in lacrosse was, a distant thought. And it was pretty interesting when they were talking. The commentators were horrible on ESPN, as you might expect. And
I like ESPN.
they were talking, and they were saying, "Oh, these Yale boys are amazing, and they're probably not going to win because you have to be really smart to be at Yale, and they take so much time to study, and it takes away from your sports, and they're not going to win, and Duke will probably come back. They have a lot more experience than Yale." Crushed Duke. It was
Wow.
really. But then they went on and on about how Yale has had umpteen presidents and 60 Nobel laureates and all that kind of stuff. And
No
so
professional lacrosse players?
well, and now they have the professors have tenure, right? So the full professors cannot be fired. They have the right to create these side research operations or side, books or speeches or even consulting if you're, a lawyer or a business guy or whatever. So you can make a tremendous amount, but the pay is really high. If you're top people get free housing, and on top of which, no one can say boo to you, right? And you have this network of, you have a gigantic audience of people who.
Well, it's huge prestige, I would think, to be a professor at Yale.
Right. Well, you have this gigantic imbalance of applications coming in versus
Right.
spots that are available. So
Right.
you could just perpetuate. So there's not much to it. And meanwhile, Yale, thanks to many people, in a small way, my parents, has a gigantic endowment,
Yeah.
and so they're not going to listen to anybody. And what exactly are they doing? I mean, what's charitable about a university that is
Yeah.
creating gigantic private gain,
Right.
illegal private gain, frankly, for its professors, for some of its donors? What's charitable about that, and why do they need to skip out on paying property taxes, which is
Yeah.
guts the city of New Haven, guts New York City, NYU,
Yeah.
and Columbia, et cetera, big landowners.
NYU makes a ton of dough. Why
Yeah.
are they able to get any? Because they're educating. Charles, when I went to a film festival in Singapore for one of the first films I worked on, and NYU had just opened NYU in Singapore, and one of my professors from NYU, who I'm still in touch with, was running the whole deal. And it was such an impressive facility. It was like way more advanced than what they have at 721 Broadway. And then just that was 10 years ago. And I spoke to him about it a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. NYU doesn't own it anymore. It's like its own independent thing. I don't understand how
Really?
that happened.
Well, don't they? I think Cheryl Mills was responsible for creating NYU Abu Dhabi, from memory. I think, yeah.
What is going on there?
Yeah, well, I think there's a way, these foreign governments want to increase their stature.
Right.
And you wash my hand, I'll wash yours. We know these construction projects, to build a campus, the University of Abu Dhabi, I think it is, something like that, or Dubai, something like that is affiliated with the Clinton Foundation. They started from scratch. They built this gigantic campus. The construction firm that probably, if they used a private if they used a private construction firm, we know from building the library in Little Rock that that's a way of, hiding all kinds of money if you want to do that. So anyway, we're a little bit off field, but
Yeah.
this is going to be a treasure trove, and I would encourage. I know the president himself is not watching this. I hope you're not watching it, because you better be boning up on your trip to North Korea. But if your people are watching this, we need to get all of these emails immediately.
Yeah.
We don't need to have, if there are 30,000 emails, we're not going to wait for 999 more dumps.
We're not going to wait for Christmas.
Or, right, exactly. Christinus.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this was, the piece that I'm writing about, that I have written actually, that will appear in the Boston Broadside, is about the fact that, of all things, Yale honored Hillary Clinton by allowing her to speak at Class Day, which is typically, I believe the class actually picks, it's not the university.
No class day?
To let her speak at Yale is just, she's the two worst graduates of Yale Lie School. They didn't go to the law school, they went to Yale Lie School. And
do I have the wrong article here?
That's it.
But this says Harvard.
I'm saying, this is a day ago she started, Class Day was last, I think, Sunday or Saturday.
Hey,
but
here's this guy again. Is this her security guy or something? Or
looks
maybe
a bit like, doesn't it look a little bit like,
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
who does it look like? It looks like, I know, Michael Hayden.
Oh yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, but here she won this award at Radcliffe. So in 1 week, she collects an award from Yale, an award from Harvard. This is actually from the Radcliffe Institute, which I think is separate and apart from Harvard. I may have that wrong. But she got this major league award, which is really an insult, I think. And my ex-wife probably would think it's a great idea. She went to Radcliffe, actually, my ex-wife.
This is the new accoutrement, the scarf holding her head on.
Exactly.
It's very interesting to see the new Captain Pike line from Walmart.
What's this?
It's the next Hawaii volcano, sorry.
Well, if we could go into the slides.
Yeah.
Sorry. So she got a medal, and again, Harvard and Yale, they don't list anybody, let alone their alumni. And they're big donors. They don't need to. There's nobody really sitting in control of these big universities. But so that was not a good development in the last week. What happened last night, though, and I don't know if I haven't been able to watch the whole thing yet. I was out to dinner during it, but I watched a bit of it. And what I saw was just for the theater value alone of what Donald Trump did, it was amazing. Here's a guy who's 71 years old, flying all over the place.
I know that guy.
Do you really?
Well, he was in Trump protest. Blacks for Trump. I forget his name, but this guy is a big supporter of Trump.
Yeah. Well, he was out there in Nashville, and the speech was just, he had the whole crowd, in the palm of his hand. And I think Marsha Blackburn introduced Trump, and Marsha's been extreme. Thank you, Marsha, for all the great work, and your team for the great work you've done, raising awareness, because she really started the process in 2015, writing a letter, getting a whole bunch of co-signatories to ask the IRS to investigate the Clinton Foundation, and of course the IRS under Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett said, yeah, we'll get right on that one. Give us all the copies of that letter. We'll put a special team on that one. We've got this office. We got the IRS investigation team for the Clinton Foundation. It's based on Alpha Centauri.
City Alpha 6.
Right. But I really would, if people have time, I'm sure you can find this whole outing on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's really very, very well done and very funny as well. And anyway, so we go back in the slides, if we can.
Oop, sorry.
All right. So this zero hedge piece, there is something rotten in the relationship between England and Langley. There's something deeply suspicious in this relationship.
Yeah.
And it needs, we the people need to understand just exactly how two-faced the people in Langley and the people in Britain have been. Because Andrew Napolitano, I think we're talking a bit, I think he's gone off his rocker on the recent comment, but on the comments that he made last year, I think it was, about a secret sort of arrangement, maybe not memorialized in a treaty or anything, wherein, if the U.S. wants to spy on American citizens inside America, it gets England to do it, and if England wants the U.S. to spy on England wants to spy on UK people inside the UK, it gets America to do it, and they
way too easily done.
And that's just cannot be allowed. And for all these people who say, well, if you're, I love the argument. I remember it began right after September 11th. You hear these idiots say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, Jason,
you have nothing to worry about.
You have nothing to worry. That's not the point.
Well, it's also not true, because what they can do is they can manipulate things and find something and lead people to believe it's something else, and we're seeing that in this whole witch hunt with Russiagate.
Well, again, the founders were smart in the Constitution. The powers that the government has are specifically enumerated in the Constitution, and those that are not mentioned are reserved, and forget the amendment, ultimately to the people.
Right.
Right? So you don't have that power to just go in and take away my freedom.
Right.
You don't have it, but yet you went down this train, and the full calumny here needs to be exposed. The degree to which these people inside the U.S., in the UK, other countries are engaged, have been engaged in this game, may still be engaged in this game. It's not like you learn a diabolical secret about a politician or a business person, and you find out ultimately that you shouldn't have seen it, and you forget it.
Right.
No doubt, all these people, even though they shouldn't have done it, have gone and made copies of sensitive files as, quote, insurance policies that we hear about. They have these things. And this whole this needs to be fully exposed, what people were doing here, and a message needs to be sent that the people who are behind this, who led this thing, who encouraged this thing, who didn't stop it from going as widely as it has gone, those people need to pay, not the ultimate price, the Ethel and Julius Rosenberg price, I wouldn't argue, but the equivalent of it. Everything taken away. You're branded a felon, you're unemployable.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Charles, did you coin this phrase, Obamagate?
No.
No, okay.
I wish I did, but
No problem.
But anyway, so this is a key article to read. This is an interesting Breitbart piece. Now, Aaron Klein is somebody who has interviewed me on his, I don't know if he still has a radio show. This piece came out on the 29th of May. Look at this, 9,600 Facebook shares, 3,900 comments. And now we're beginning to understand that this meeting, the meeting that occurred in Trump Tower, where this Russian national, the lawyer, was allowed into the country. There's been a separate story that not this person, but the female lawyer was
Veselnitskaya.
Was given. You're very good with that. I didn't know you spoke Russian, but was given a waiver to come inside this country on a basis that only Loretta Lynch could have signed off on that. So doesn't this smell to you as if what they were trying to do is create the suspicious meeting to try to implicate Donald Trump Jr. and others to try to concoct a crime here?
Well, that's what, again, I keep coming back to that is the play. Like, set up some event and then be like, oh, look what this person did. And it's like, but wait, you did all that.
Right. It's entrapment.
And here she's wearing the winter collection from the Captain Pike collection.
It's kind of the Evita Peron look, right? The black lace and whatever.
Terrible.
Yeah. So, now, this is also interesting. This Zero Hedge is, Breitbart and Zero Hedge are both wonderful, but this is a story, Jason, that I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, but somebody from this, what's it called? There's a special, the Forensicator,
Oh, yeah.
has gone into this Guccifer 2 and is claiming that they see, and I don't understand the details of it, but they see signs that Guccifer 2's files may have come from the west coast of the United States, not internationally.
Arizona, possibly?
And we know from Snowden's dumps that the CIA are expert in making files look as if they came from a place they didn't come from, right? So, to me, the notion, when I look at, I'm a simple person, when I look at somebody and you see a shifty behavior, John Brennan is a shifty individual. There's no part of him that's straight.
Right.
And he was in charge of the CIA for many years under Obama. He has a lot to lose now as this process moves forward here. And the idea that the CIA might have been manipulating things here to make it seem as if Russia was involved, it rings wholly true to me. And let's have some serious there are objective people in the FBI. There are objective politicians, very few of them, but there are. Let's have some people really look closely at this to see exactly how the whole Russian collusion delusion narrative started.
Wait a minute. Who's this?
I don't know, Tate.
Matt Tate is a guy who was working with Peter W. Smith. Where is
Oh,
that?
is it?
Yes, look, this guy. Lawfare. Pepper Stanley, I hope you're watching. What is Matt Tate doing getting involved with this Guccifer 2.0? This guy was directly involved with the whole Peter Smith situation. I need to review that with Pepper. And then he also was part of Google Project Zero, something we've heard almost nothing about, which was Google hiring up all these hackers. This guy is a specialist from GCHQ who writes for this blog called Lawfare.
And he is English.
Yes.
Huh.
Project Zero, Google Project Zero. Charles, something stinks with this.
I agree. Well, that's why I put it up there.
Anything Guccifer 2.0, Seth Rich, I say is an intelligence op.
Let's get to the bottom of it.
People have laughed at me, but I'm sorry. I don't believe anything having to do with Seth Rich.
Well, all right. So then...
And who else is part of the Five Eyes? New Zealand. Who else has been frequently spouting off about Seth Rich in between trips to Ibisu, which frankly wasn't that great.
Ibiza? Or
Ibisu.
where's that?
That's in Auckland, New Zealand.
Oh, okay. What is that?
Japanese restaurant.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the Spanish island. Ibiza.
Ibiza. Yes. No, I haven't been there.
So we don't need to pull this Roseanne Barr link up, but clearly what she said was horrible.
I do feel bad for Roseanne, however, because I think most people have had those moments where you say something that you really regret. And unfortunately for Roseanne, and even more unfortunately for the people that were working for the show, the consequences are huge. The thing that I find really problematic about this, because I'm thinking about all the crew people. These are like people that would have been my friends in Hollywood, and they're not rich. But if you're on a show that's the first season and then you get word that it's renewed, I guarantee.
They bought a house.
Right. There's people who just bought a new car, bought a house, did whatever, and now those people are in serious trouble. Like, Roseanne's going to be fine. I'm sure she's a millionaire, and even if she never works again, obviously it's not a good situation. But there are people who are going to be financially screwed by this, and I don't know that it was necessarily punishment fitting the crime.
Yeah, and and then when you think about across Hollywood, you think about the bad behavior. What she said about Valerie Jarrett was horrible. But think
somebody going to die over that?
Well, but think of the bad behavior.
NXIVM cult.
Yeah, well, beyond that, in the movies, in these TV shows,
raping actresses,
all of that stuff, but beyond that, just the images that are sent out, excessive violence, and there's a lot to regret coming out of Hollywood, and yet this is one thing that this is rough justice. I shouldn't have been drinking and taking sleeping pills and tweeting that night. Is the message of that story.
Did she say that?
She's blaming it on Ambien, which is
Wow.
And most likely it wasn't just Ambien.
Wow.
But
did not know that.
And then I noticed that this account, we just pull it up, this Twitter account that was suspended. This is the person who used to be called Rex, and then they opened up a new thing, Rachel Lindsay.
Was that Imperator Rex?
it might have been even Imperator Rex as well. But this account was suspended for some reason. And I put this up here to say, back in the day, pre-internet, you had, though the mainstream media leaned in a certain way, there were many outlets, right? There were many, many newsrooms, many TV stations, many magazines, etc. And now, advertising spending is concentrated in Google, in Twitter, in Facebook, maybe in Instagram. And certainly those large organizations are valued highly in the marketplace by investors, and the balance of power has shifted to the place where these firms that really have no experience in curating news and not really great experience understanding history, they're geeks, they're technology geeks, hats off to them, they're billionaires, but we need to have a grown-up discussion in this country about the rights that these people have to censor you,
right,
and the ways in which they say. And I'd love to know, if you could put array the people who have been suspended and discern their leanings, whether they're conservative or progressive or conservative or liberal. I wonder if the shift remotely resembles a bell curve. Here's a news flash. It doesn't. It's a straight line bar chart.
Yeah.
They're probably all conservatives.
Right.
And that's really not right.
What was that website that you had sent me that allows you to determine if you're shadow banned on Twitter?
I think you Google it. Just Google shadow ban Twitter.
Oh yeah, here it is. Tester, nice brains. Twitter shadow ban tester. But wait, where is it? Well, we'll have to. I'll look into that while you continue.
All right, good. Well, so if we go. Then we have this this guy Eric Greitens out in Missouri, who I think it is Kansas or Missouri, I forget which. Looks like Kansas, maybe.
We're not in Kansas anymore, Charles.
Oh, Missouri. He resigned, and he should have resigned. But he resigns, yet Bill Clinton is out there hosting events, resurrecting his foundation, perpetually raising money.
Wow. Sorry to interrupt, but look at this. The Twitter shadow ban tester has been shadow banned.
That's pretty funny.
I guess there's a new one here.
That's very funny.
So this was what I found interesting. If you put...
I was shadow banned, I think.
I know. At least one tweet was found.
Oh, not shadow banned. Okay, I'm not shadow
Well,
banned.
that's different than last time.
Yeah, let's see crowdsource. Achtung. You're not shadow banned. We
That's
both
different
were
result than what we saw last week.
I think we were shadow banned and then unshadow banned.
Interesting. Sorry for that.
That's all right.
I'm very ADD today, Charles.
It's okay.
Where was our other... No, sorry.
No.
Let's get it from here.
Yeah. So this is Eric Greitens we're talking about. He was forced to resign. Now apparently what he did is I think the allegation was that he had an affair and he took a nude picture of somebody and then threatened that person if they talked about it. Yeah, horrible stuff. But
blackmailing with a nude picture.
Well, is raping worse than that?
Well,
viciously
yes.
Raping?
Is that what he did?
No, but that's what Bill Clinton did to Juanita Broderick.
Right.
So all these know-it-alls, in the mainstream press, I guess, a number of them have a hard time. Charlie Rose can't talk about it right now because he's out of work. But, who's the other guy? Brokaw? I guess he's out of work.
Did Tom Brokaw?
He was accused of that as well.
Wow, it's a long list. It's hard to keep track.
It's a horrible behavior, but let's come forward here. And, why is the mainstream media giving Bill Clinton a pass? So we to date have been focused exclusively on the charity fraud. But now that the thing has come to the fore here of charity fraud, people are engaged on the issue. And now that Harvey Weinstein is, going to most likely go to jail, and now that Bill Cosby is going to go to jail, why is Bill Clinton still on the lam, living large?
Bill Cosby, I think, is appealing.
He'll go to jail. He may die first, but he will eventually go to jail.
Wow.
Why are those people, the subject of, rightly, aggressive criminal actions. And Bill Clinton's wandering around. He's an epic fraudster.
It really is. I mean, it's almost like a modern day spell has been cast on people. How no one, like, you can't imagine another person in, with that kind of public profile who would rape even one person that people would be like, oh, he's a great guy.
Or his wife would stay married to him,
right,
and then say, I'm going to be the first female president, and you'll listen to me and listen to my idiotic daughter, the PhD expert on diarrhea, talk about, empowering teenage girls.
It's
we're both good.
crazy.
We both have time to be. What are you going to give Bill Clinton for Father's Day, Hillary and Chelsea? What are you going to give him? I don't know, condoms. I mean, a rape kit.
Oh, it's terrible.
So now. We got negative news this morning actually on the U.S. economy, but I think bottom line here, this story says is encouraging that the U.S. now is back as the #1 economy in terms of competitive.
China before?
Hong Kong, the small portion of China, Hong Kong, and Switzerland were up there. But we got a negative print, I think, this morning on GDP was revised to only 2.2% up, which isn't great. But I think relative to the rest of the world, the United States, particularly under Trump, is now in such strong shape, well over a year into his first term. I think with luck, the streak is going to continue. There may be good results in 2018 in November. And even if we see a stock market crash, even if we see turmoil in Europe as, let's say, the EU blows up or implosion in one or more countries around the world, that's just going to make it more attractive to put money in this economy. So what will happen in a crash is our interest rates will go down, which will propel asset price, keep them high. And we'll see this is the safest place in the world at the moment, barring an EMP attack or something dread like that. We probably are going to do pretty well, and that's great news actually for especially the poorest among us. The people living on the edges are going to get jobs.
I say this is absolutely the type of stuff that the average person doesn't understand, and the George Soros type of people are manipulating to make billions of dollars. What does this mean that Singapore is the #3 most competitive economy?
They're principally thinking about regulations and taxes, and in Hong Kong and Singapore, they're very low taxes, very light regulations.
So is this why NYU would open a thing there and then suddenly lose it, and somehow it feels to me like there's a way they're getting millions of dollars from that?
Could be.
Sell it to somebody for, like, you build something. There was that casino in Atlantic City called, I forget, not Borgata, but the other one that they spent like billions on, and then it immediately went out of business and somebody bought it for 10 cents on the dollar, and that just reeked of like a great way to screw some insurance company or some...
Yeah, probably.
So if we go back... No economist, Charles, but I got a nose for nonsense.
You got a nose for that stuff, okay. This, it turns out, was not true. This bottom story here from the BBC, which said, the next one.
Oops. Brits broadcasting crap?
Yeah. I mean, this BBC, I saw this and I said, wow, it's on BBC, probably true. Not true. Guy shows up at a press conference today.
Shot dead in Kiev. This is a very popular Ukrainian name.
Yeah. He's a Putin critic. And living in Ukraine, and this goes on and on. He was found bleeding, his wife said this, blah, 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 he died. Not true. He appeared live at a press conference hours ago.
Yaroslav Trakalo confirmed the death.
Yeah.
So sketchy.
What
do you think this means, Charles?
Well, again, people are talking about fake news, and I think, British Broadcasting Service Corporation is, in theory, a reputable organization. It's very left-leaning.
Well, you got to ask Jimmy Savile about that.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. So we can go to the next page here. Now, we won't pull up all of these because a number of this stuff has been, we've talked about this at length in the past, but to make it simple for the investigators and simple for the simpleton lamestream journalists, What we've done is we made some points, and if you want to get more information, you hit the blue links. So we've talked ad nauseum about the fact that from 2001 to 2005, Mueller, Comey, and Rosenstein couldn't see the obvious Clinton Foundation frauds. They're right in front of their eyes. They had grand juries convened, they had FBI, teams of FBI agents, and they couldn't see obvious frauds.
Texting their girlfriends.
Right. So when we're now waiting for this Horowitz report, and unless Horowitz goes in to understand the rationale why Mueller and Clinton and Obama would want to cover up all these things, unless you go into this stuff, you will not really understand why it is that Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett and Hillary and Bill Clinton and others were so interested in rigging the election in 2015-16 to make sure that none of this garbage would come to light.
Yeah.
So either the report covers this stuff and satisfies our curiosity. Ultimately, we may get many reports, so this may just be a first chapter in it. Either it covers it and really and the team distinguishes themselves, or they don't cover it, in which case we're going to know they didn't do the complete job. And we're just going to have to put even more pressure for there to be a second special prosecutor, congressional investigations, and serious work done, understanding why this whole mess actually happened.
Who would you choose as the special prosecutor if you could choose?
Oh boy, the Illuminator.
Laura? But she's not a lawyer.
Yeah, I don't think
Doesn't
you need to be
matter. She would still just destroy them.
So here, I'll just suggest that we do punch up the links of the new stuff that hasn't been seen before. Here in 2005, you can hit that one there, please. The second link.
Yeah, sorry, it came up over here by
That's right.
accident. Now, look at that, Charles.
Yeah, the impact report, we're not going to get that because it's...
But, I mean, aren't they... Oh, I thought that was their little still asking for
Right.
money thing.
Yeah, see, they are always asking for money. Here, on September 6, 2005, look at this. The Kazakhstan government signs an agreement to join the HIV/AIDS Initiative Procurement Consortium. Small problem with that. There wasn't one. There's no such thing.
But also, Kazakhstan is the capital of the world as far as uranium production,
Right.
isn't it?
And this is, on this trip, I believe, in this time frame, Frank Giustra takes credit in a press release, in an interview in Canada, for donating a lot of money, I want to say 31.5 million or 31.4 million, to Chai in 2005. There's no such amount in the Chai 990, which we have. And this would explain, this is the origins of the Uranium One transaction. That here's Giustra operating in 2005, not 9 and 10, 2005 with Bill Clinton. And ask yourself, how many people had HIV and AIDS in Kazakhstan? And the answer is not many. Was the Clinton Foundation authorized to fight HIV/AIDS in Kazakhstan? No. Did they disclose any activities in their 990 in Kazakhstan? No, they didn't. Have they ever filed legal paperwork anywhere in the world to create something called the HIV/AIDS Initiative Procurement Consortium? Not to my knowledge.
Wow.
Is this therefore a boldly illegal? And what is it? It's to procure drugs at a discount for governments. How is that a charity? Are the vendors of the drugs getting market prices for their generic AIDS drugs, or are they selling them at a loss? Why is this a charity? It isn't a charity is the answer. So unless Horowitz really gets into the illegal nature of the various Clinton Foundation operations, especially the HIV/AIDS thing, going all the way back to July of 2002, if not earlier, unless he does that work and exposes the fraud at the Clinton Foundation, he will not be telling the whole truth about what really happened in this report, and therefore the report will be defective.
Charles, they have a go-kart and family park conveniently adjacent to Almaty, Kazakhstan, perhaps.
Now, all these buildings are kind of low, aren't they?
Yeah, well, this is an area of the world where Google Earth has obviously not made it 3D. This is just satellite imagery, like if this were New York or something. I'm curious why. I
love the shacks over here. Is that a graveyard, or is that these shanty towns?
This?
I think these are shacks.
Houses, I guess.
Or houses. Okay, isn't that where Borat was filmed? Or?
Yeah, Kazakhstan looks a lot less underdeveloped than we've been led to believe. And of course, what's the capital of it?
Almaty.
Oh, it is. So there was a whole part of Kazakhstan I was looking at with Quinn where they have a ton of dough in Kazakhstan from all this uranium, I guess.
Yeah, and then you see, like anything else, you have a city, and then immediately you go into the rural areas, and it's very sparsely settled.
This looks like an airport.
Anyway, so we go back into the slides. Yeah, it is the airport. And we've talked about Alexander Downer. I mean, if we pull that one up, this is Michael Smith's excellent report. We've got many of them. You scroll down it, you'll see that Downer signed. If you keep going down, you'll see further down. There you go. Okay. On the 22nd of February 2006, here's William J. Clinton signing for the William J. Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, which didn't exist. And Bill was not an officer of the Clinton Foundation. He had no legal authority to sign this document.
What would a handwriting expert say about this rather conspicuous arrow pointing up?
Let's get one to say. Or what
above the top of the J? Is this supposed to be the thing across the top of a J? Because what I've heard about handwriting analysis is that with T's and J's, if the crossbar at the top is above the thing, it's an indication of an excessively high opinion of the person's self.
I'd say that's a very high, and look at that.
And it's pointing up. It's like super high. He thinks he's the best.
He is the honorable William J., the dishonorable William J. Clinton. But here we have, I mean, you spell it the American way there and the English way there, but, you know.
What do you mean? Oh, honorable.
With a U. And
wow.
then
yes.
So, but here's Alexander Downer doing a crooked deal as foreign minister of Australia, donating, it turns out, setting Australia up to give 100 million Australian to an entity that never was lawfully organized. There's been, you know, the Australian government, of course, doesn't want to open this up because it implicates probably Malcolm Turnbull and Gillard and people like that who are carrying the party along here. And this same guy, Alexander Downer, ends up working for Hackett.
Right. And cocktails with Papadopoulos.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody's going to ask questions like, doesn't this look a bit like a setup to you? I mean, this of all the people to be in this casino, in this bar or whatever, you know.
Yeah, all the gin joints in all the world.
Alexander Downer is there with George Papadopoulos, and do we really believe that Donald Trump was on the Clinton train of getting, you know, 33-year-old idiots to be foreign policy advisors?
33?
I think he is, yeah. Anyway, we've shown you before this fake MOU. I mean, this Horowitz report has got to address why it was that people fell for the notion that you could have a memorandum of understanding, which is not legally enforceable, operate to, quote, protect the American taxpayer from conflicts of interest involving Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and their foundation. Why did they do that? Okay, and who authorized that? There's some smart people in the Department of Justice who would have said this is meaningless. Now, we've already put the link up, and we've covered the link about the 30,000 missing emails. You've seen before this thing in September of 2016. I went and checked it. It was the second time I was in Zero Hedge. The first time was May 6th, 2016. So right at the beginning of inventing, you know, this Russia collusion stuff, is when Zero Hedge made a big deal about the Clinton Foundation fraud, and when I went on multiple channels, including Fox, alleging, which I think is light, that the total value of the fraud is in excess of 100 billion. I think it's now in the trillions when you count everything. The stimulus.
That's unbelievable.
It's not unbelievable.
What's the national debt?
21 trillion.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. You know, why wasn't there an inspector general while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State? I mean, Horowitz, if you don't comment on this, I mean, we know that you made an issue, you won a big battle with Barack Obama over putting some teeth into the role of inspector general. If you don't have comments about the oddity of Hillary Clinton not having an inspector general for the whole time she was there with all these problems, you know, it sure looks to me as if they rendered the oversight of the Department of State toothless from the beginning, and that had to be by design. That did not happen by accident.
Could be toothless and ruthless.
Yeah. And then we have these 3 fines. We don't need to pull them up, but suffice it to say, these are all. This is one of them. HSBC and Stephen Cohen are above $1 billion each. Ranbaxy is only half $1 billion. And the question with these fines, which occurred while Barack Obama was president, is not, oh, isn't this great that it's a large fine? Why weren't they bigger? Why was it more aggressive action taken against HSBC, against Ranbaxy, against Stephen Cohen? And to what extent were these entities supporting the Clintons one way or another? And why didn't Rod Rosenstein investigate the Laureate going private transaction, which to me reeks of fraud?
Way bigger than the Trump University that people love to reference.
But when it was a publicly traded company, Laureate, and they took it private, and the biggest player arranging that was Stephen Cohen, okay, who was subsequently cited for insider trading.
Going private, Charles. I mean, that's a relatively unusual. Why do people want to do that?
So that's what I did when I was what I did.
So going private is not
going private. Back in the day, when I started at Wall Street in June of 1980. It's 1980, not 1880. There were quite a few companies that had untapped debt potential. In other words, debt potential. They could borrow money off their balance sheet comfortably and service it out of their income. So going private transactions basically involve changing the leverage, the debt profile of a company. You take somebody, my great-grandfather hated debt. You take a company run by somebody like that, and you buy it for a fair price, a low price.
Borrow a ton of dough.
And then you borrow. Back in 1980, there were multiple cases I'm aware of where people were able to pay somebody $10 million and borrow $30 million and give themselves a $20 million dividend right away. Because the assets were so under leveraged. So that's in essence, that's what a going private transaction is. You take a publicly traded company, you get a new group of shareholders and lenders in, and you take the thing off the market. You pay off the existing shareholders. Oftentimes, a portion of the existing shareholders will decide to roll their equity into the new transaction, which is what happened in Laureate. And you then work your magic on the company, you clean it up, you introduce new systems, you whatever, and then you take it public at a later date with a different growth trajectory. And those type of transactions were not that common, actually, and they started being popularized by Henry Kravis and others in the late 70s, early 80s. And we've now been at this for almost 40 years. And so most of the good companies that could have been taken private, have been taken private, taken public, taken private again.
Wow.
So most of that's done, and you're now dealing with what used to be a specialty practice is now really a commodity, and you're seeing people make big ass mistakes. Also in this time frame, interest rates from 1980 have done this, gone straight down, which means that asset values have done this, they've gone straight up. When that process reverses and interest rates start going up, it's not going to be an environment to do leveraged buyout transactions. Those are we would jokingly call them leveraged decapitations, where you take on too much debt and the interest rates on your borrowings go up.
And it ruins the company.
It ruins the company, it ruins you, it ruins the investors. It's a bad idea. So again, the Horowitz report is going to need to plumb these depths of, what was Comey really doing in Mueller? What were they doing with HSBC? What were they doing with Ranbaxy? What were they doing with the Stephen Cohen fine? Was there an operation set up under Barack Obama to allow miscreants like Stephen Cohen to, you're going to pay a $1.8 billion fine, but that's not as bad as the $20 billion fine we could have charged you and locked you up.
Well, and also, how much did they steal? Because that could be a good investment, paying an $8 billion fine if you make $2 or $3 billion.
It wouldn't be great if you don't want to pay an $8 billion fine and make 2 or 3
If you make
billion.
11 and pay 8, you're doing all right.
It's not the way they look at it. It's more 10 cents on the dollar.
Really?
Yeah. But
still $3 billion. I don't know. See, this is why I'm not in finance.
So
$3 billion sounds like good day to me.
In red here, if Horowitz does not address the bold set of lies, the flurry of lies, of ongoing lies, and smoke blowing, black smoke blowing, of the whole Clinton team and Barack Obama, the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton was under investigation with Huma Abedin and others for mishandling classified information beginning on the 10th of July 2015. We know this for a fact. And there is the FBI vault link to the, I think that's to the summary page. I glossed over at the very top this thing we talked about on last Sunday, page 138. We should maybe hit this just for on the off chance people today haven't seen this before. If we can go into that link and then hit there and go to page 138, which I only know because we've done this before. This is really stunning. Page 138. In previous pages, the second line of the people who are being targeted, third line, is covered over. Here we see for the first time the person who is being investigated in addition to William Jefferson Clinton for 3 separate cases, not one, 3 separate cases, was Hillary Rodham Clinton. Okay, and that this memo is dated, I think it's dated in March 21st, 2001. So she hadn't even been senator for a quarter, right? She started early in January as U.S. senator. She hadn't even been senator for a full quarter of a year, and already she's the subject of 3 criminal investigations for public corruption. And they've been trying to cover this over. Okay, this is the genesis of why the Clinton Foundation has been able to get away with this for so long. Right?
It's Genesis and Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel.
Exactly, the whole shooting match. But people in the FBI, I'm sure there are many, many good people in the FBI. If they have an equivalent of an internal affairs group that you might see.
That's the Office of Professional Responsibility.
Okay, if that's the group, they need to see the whole file here on this original Clinton Foundation investigation. When was it opened? Who opened it? Who gamed it? Why did Dopey James Comey get picked after 9/11 to be the U.S. attorney leading the prosecution on these matters? Why did Dopey James Comey fail to see the obvious? Why did Robert Mueller allow this to happen? These are the scale. Why did Rod Rosenstein elect not to prosecute this
fraud? So wait a minute, when was Comey made U.S. attorney? Because in this dopey book that he wrote, he talks about how he was investigating Whitewater, which of course was way.
Yeah, he was doing that. I think he was working for a law firm back then, and he
was doing
that
was hired by the Senate.
And he did that, but he was then an employee at, I think, Maine Justice, and he was then made a U.S. attorney and took over. He had a briefing, we know from this dump here, not this part, but this dump on William J. Clinton Foundation. In either part 1 or part 2, there's a memorandum of describing this meeting that Comey swung by New York in December of 2001, but he officially became U.S. attorney early in January 2002. And it should have been obvious. I mean, you could take a room, you go out to the bottom 50 law schools in America, and for good measure, and the bottom 50 accounting programs in America, and for good measure, you can then say, what I want is go to the deans of these places, and I want you to give me the 10 worst students at all these places. Then you put their names into a gigantic hat, and you pick, 100 of these people. 99 out of 100 of the dumbest, worst graduates in accounting and law at the worst schools in America would immediately see this as a fraud.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say would immediately get hired by the
No, but they immediately see this as a fraud. So the question is for the internal affairs people at the FBI is, this was an investigation that was purposefully gamed. Now, why did that happen? Was it because the Clintons had dirt coming out of the 8 years of the White House on W. Bush, on multiple Republicans, and the Clintons said, hey, look, you could go after us for this, but we've got a lot of information on Enron that you really are not necessarily going to want to see coming out here. We may have other information. You can go have an investigation, but it's not going to do anything bad here, because if it gets too close to us, you're going down.
Well, that seems to be the method that everybody is using, right? We keep hearing that Andrew McCabe is going to burn down the entire FBI and bring everybody down. I think True Pundit had a tweet today going back to a story they had a few weeks ago where McCabe is going to do that.
It's just just even saying something like that is so outrageous.
Yeah.
And I say that because in the FBI, I mean, if you hear the words, you know, the FBI would like to come speak to you, you know, that's
Not
probably
really a good day.
It's not shaping up as a great day for you.
Yeah.
And so that these people would have such enormous power, and that the people, you know, on the top of the food chain under Obama and maybe under Bush and certainly under Clinton would have gone so badly wrong, you know, is an affront to the basic idea of law and order. It's no law and disorder.
Yeah.
And so here we have a name. I don't know if this gentleman is still alive, Mr. Cordier, but I mean, the FBI would have the ability, I would assume, to go back into this file and see the unredacted versions and maybe papers that, you know, there are papers that don't even make it into the official file. And they should be able, they owe the American people now an explanation of truly what happened.
Maybe a new book.
Yeah. So going down to the very bottom of this page, we've talked about this Wiener Aberdeen laptop. Now what we had heard through Jerry Corsi and actually through Peter W. Smith.
He just called, actually,
Oh, really?
Dr. Corsi.
We'll call you in a bit. What we heard through what I heard personally through Peter Smith, and I have an email to the effect, is that the New York Police Department recovered this laptop. And the New York Police Department found stuff on it supposedly that was so gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
We don't yet know what that is, but the suspicion is it might be human trafficking, it might be gross sex stuff, it might be drug smuggling, etc. But the rumor is that there's 650,000 emails on this laptop. 650,000 emails. And so somehow they decide to sit on it. The FBI seized the laptop from the New York Police Department, who was threatening to hold a press conference, you know, in I think late August, early September timeframe. They seized the laptop in the New York office. They then sit on the laptop, you know, and this is McCabe supposedly giving the orders to sit on the laptop. Somehow word gets out, and they have the search warrant issued. Comey is then forced to make a press release, pissing off the Clinton team. You know, Hillary believes that announcement alone may have cost her the election. And then magically, between the date of the press release in late October and whenever Comey decides that they look through this thing, they are able to, in a very short period of time, scant days, vet all of these emails on the laptop. And I'm not buying that. I don't think they did that right. Yeah, here we go.
Now, I don't know this website, but this came up, and I mean, we've heard Thomas Paine of True Pundit make reference to horrendous things on the laptop. Obviously, people are reluctant to talk about it, and in private conversations he's told me, it's like, you know, people get killed over this type of stuff. So,
well, this guy Selwyn Duke is somebody I've seen writing up in Canada for different things, and generally I like his work. So, I mean, the point is, the Clintons have gotten the benefit of the doubt for an enormous period. Does Donald Trump get the benefit of the doubt? Does Mike Pence get the benefit of it? Does any Republican get the benefit of the doubt? But the Clintons, you know, unbelievable benefit of the doubt. And it's just well past time to give the Clintons benefit of the doubt for anything.
Charles, the NYPD sources said the new emails include evidence linking Hillary Clinton herself and associates to money laundering, child exploitation, sex crimes with minor children, perjury, pay-to-play, obstruction of justice, and other felony crimes. And they
just the type of person you want to have your hand on the nuclear button, right?
Well,
I mean, this kind of behavior wouldn't be kind of behavior that would maybe make you susceptible to blackmail at all.
Right.
You know?
But she also revealed some kind of secret about the response time of the nuclear, you know, the U.S. nuclear response during a debate by saying, like, the president has 4 minutes or something like this. So that was sort of stupid.
So if we go then to the final page, I had a great time on this crosstalk.
Yeah.
And I have to say, for all the dopey Chuck Todd and the know-it-alls at ABC, CBS, and NBC, I mean, look, with your scripted shows, your pre-taped shows, where you get guests to speak for 13 seconds, in between commercials for adult diapers and other kinds of medications. I mean, this is actually a refreshing experience. We were taped for about, I want to say 30 minutes or so. 30 minutes, 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 30 min no real sense of the exact direction that this person would go. I didn't know who I would be debating until I got into my little box there in lower right.
It was a great appearance, Charles.
It was fun. And actually, Hal Goodman made some excellent points, I thought. And
I agree.
I didn't get the other gentleman's name. But it was all, and it was live, no delay, no nothing. I mean, we taped it, one tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Amazing.
Well,
So
you're very good
I
off the
commend
cuff.
to our viewers, you should don't just watch the ones I'm on. You should watch this show regularly. We're hearing now this idiot, the second story, some idiot.
Pre-budding.
Yeah, that was my phrase. Head-butting. And first of all, some Democratic rep is saying, you better not make any announcements that could affect the midterm elections. We're talking about late May.
Well, we're also talking about crimes. If
Right.
they've been done, that might unfortunately have a negative impact on your midterm election if you're doing crime.
And I love the Democratic mentality. It's like, we're going to tell you, we're going to make all the rules. We're going to tell you how to interpret the verdict. We're going to tell you, what, because that's what we do. I mean, if it's a Republican, you have an appearance of impropriety, you've got to immediately resign, like Greitens, right? And like Roseanne Barr.
Right.
You've got to immediately resign. No trial, no nothing. You resign. But Democrats, if there's a report, you got to promise us before you release the report that you're not going to that you're not going to actually charge us before the election. I mean,
Right.
we can't lose power here. We might be able to impeach Trump. And it's just the double. This explains why CNN's audience is in the toilet, or as Archie Bunker says, the turlet. I mean, and this guy, by the way,
but
is
what this right here demonstrates, Trump says without proof that Mueller team will meddle, but Mueller says without proof that Russia was doing something
Right.
with the presidential election.
And to be fair to this senator, I think he's not a representative, he's a senator. Guy from Delaware there. Anyway, so we go back into the slides. If we can. Now, let's take a look at Trump's Twitter feed here, which is the link to it. Let's see, what is right to try? I wonder what that is. Oh, right to try is for terminally ill people, the right to try.
Oh yeah.
Every day Donald Trump is doing, here we have. Patients with life-threatening illnesses will finally have access to experimental treatments. I think that's great.
Actually, a guy that I went to grade school with, who is now a lawyer, was somehow involved in. I just actually randomly ran into the guy the other day, and he mentioned to me that right to try was going to become a law, and there it is, being signed by Trump.
But if you keep going down the page, he's also had some zingers. Yeah. Bob Iger of ABC called Valerie Jarrett to let her know that ABC does not tolerate comments like those. Gee, he never called President Donald J. Trump to apologize for the horrible statements made and said about me on ABC. Maybe I just didn't get the call.
Like that.
And then the failing and corrupt New York Times estimated the crowd last night at 1,000 people. I mean, I'm no great estimator of crowd size, but I could tell you what I saw. That was way more than 1,000 people. And then about this, this is a three-part tweet. Starts here. I think what the president is doing is expressing frustration that the Attorney General should have shared his reasons for recusal. If I were the president, I picked someone to be the country's chief law enforcement officer, and they told me later on the way, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be able to participate in the most important case in the office, I'd be frustrated too.
Yeah.
And that's how I read that. Senator Sessions, why didn't you tell me before I picked you? And here's Donald J. Trump. There are lots of really good lawyers in the country. He could have picked somebody else, and I wish I did.
I wish he had picked Larry Klayman, because it would just be like, not only would he drain the swamp, he'd be pounding it with a plunger.
Well, there's a difference. There are a lot of very smart lawyers who don't have expertise, narrow, battle-hardened decades of expertise in important areas that are relevant here. And you'll get a theoretical lawyer, a brilliant theoretical lawyer, who will just sound, whatever that comes out of the person's mouth will sound right. But then you get a practitioner
Yeah.
who's done 1,000 trials like this.
Know how to navigate the.
And then they'll say, look, this is not actionable, or this is
Right.
an easy conviction, and here are the 17 things you didn't ask me that you should have asked me. That's the kind of lawyer you want here, not Gumby Sessions. He's just obviously not somebody on top of his game. He's just not. And we need, with all the problems, especially given the Injurious 7 and all the harm they've caused over 8 years, and you go further back under Bush and Clinton and H.W. Bush, there's a tremendous amount of house cleaning that has to happen in the Department of Justice, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, the SEC, the IRS, a whole bunch of these places, and their staffs have all got to be cleaned out. We don't need Gumby on top of the Department of Justice. We just don't need the dude. If he's supposedly a man of honor, he should just resign. Let Trump put a new person in. That's what I do. If the President of the United States was tweeting out, I wish I hired somebody other than Charles
you'd step away.
Ortel to be Attorney General, I don't think I'd say, well, I think I want to keep working for you because you obviously respect me.
It's a good point. Why doesn't he just resign? That kind of almost shines a light on, like, what the hell are you doing there?
Yeah. And here we have, Trey Gowdy on paper. I mean, he's awesome, but now he's coming out saying he's praising the Department of Justice and FBI efforts during Spygate.
Crazy. I'm totally over Trey Gowdy.
And here's Sundance on The Last Refuge, and what's this called? The Conservative Treehouse. This person, I don't know who this person is or whether it's a team of people, does incredible work. But, we have our mutual friend, Jan Weinberg, pointing out that Boeing has a big plan in South Carolina, and obviously may have been able to fund
money to Trey Gowdy.
But this is extremely disappointing. Generally, I like a lot of what Trey Gowdy says, but let's look at his record. Did he get to the bottom of what happened at Benghazi? No, he didn't. Did the House Oversight Committee figure out what was happening to the Clinton Foundation?
Nope.
No, it didn't. And now these comments are not impressive.
No.
Not impressive at all.
Oh, look, there he is in New York.
Yeah, probably. Maybe he's interviewing for a job at some high-priced law firm.
Or Fox.
A law firm, you'd make more money.
Probably so.
So if we go back into the slides, then we have, our friend Andrew Napolitano. This honestly is just like no nice way to say it. This is just bullshit.
What did he do?
For Fox News and Trump's Spygate claims are baseless.
Why
baseless?
would Judge Knapp say that?
Yeah, that's a strong statement to come from a judge. I don't think they're baseless at all. I think what we have, so far, if anything, Trump has been way ahead of the pack, making claims as he did back in March of, I think, 2017, that my wires have been tapped or whatever. For Napolitano to make this, and he's a friend of Trump's, he's known Trump for 30 years, to say this baseless, I don't think they're baseless. I think we know that the Clinton Foundation and the Clintons were, the Clinton Foundation is in dire trouble. It should be put out of business, faces billions of dollars, I think, of criminal penalties if the job is done properly against major donors, including the Gates Foundation and others. So there's a real reason here to cover up the truth involving Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and we know that Bill Clinton has his signature. We talked about his signature on that MOU with Alexander Downer. There's Steve Bannon.
Next story.
But I just don't understand how Napolitano could reach the conclusion that Trump's Spygate claims are, quote, baseless. That's stronger than, I disagree with it. That means there's no argument that makes any sense in his claims. And I think that just is wrong. People make mistakes. Judge Knapp, you made a big one.
Yeah.
We are given to understand that Grassley has reported, or it's been reported by Harridge, that Grassley has scheduled Horowitz to appear on the 5th of June to talk about his report.
Yeah.
That would suggest that the report would come out before the 5th of June, the 5th of June being the same day that what's happening.
Bill Clinton's releasing a book about the president missing.
The president's missing. That was a great title. Like, the president's morality is missing. The president is missing. Anyway, that same day, Grassley's got Horowitz showing up, in theory, and there's the great Melissa Francis, who's a wonderful human being. to talk about this Horowitz report. So I think that means this report's going to be out soon, and let's see what's in it, you know?
I mean, we've certainly been waiting long enough for the thing.
Well, I'm sure it's detailed. Now that on Strzok, apparently going into Strzok's background, the relationships between Strzok and his father and brothers or whatever.
Someone, well, I think True Pundit had a thing today that Peter Strzok's father was in the CIA.
Right. Well, but there are also links between the Strzok's and the Obamas and stuff. So
not surprising.
Not surprising in the slightest. So if we go back into the old slideroos, yeah, this is a great thing from Judicial Watch on the scandal that you were actively covering early, the Iwan scandal. You know, Judicial Watch is just yesterday pounding the table. There's a big cover-up of this Democratic information technology security scandal involving the Awan family, and as Barack Obama likes to say, Pakistan. You know, what the hell? I mean, this is...
What's the evidence that they've found here?
You'll have to read through it. But the point here is that...
No, this is it. Look, an excerpt from the news article about the Capitol Police turning over a trove of evidence. That's
you.
Yeah, that's what Laurel Everly, you know. So, okay, there was a lot of nonsense coming out of the nonsense camp that I had done something wrong. This witness, first-hand experience with Imran Awan, called me up, said Imran hacked her computer, and I said, well, let's give it to the FBI or the Capitol Police. And I mean, to me, at that time, that was like what you're supposed to do. They're the cops, they're law enforcement. So now someone's telling me, oh, you should have brought it to a lawyer. First of all, I can't tell Laurel Everly what to do with her property. She was in no position to hire a lawyer. I wasn't either. Brought it to the police. They brought it right to Gowan, Chris Gowan, the defense attorney, which Thomas Paine appeared on the show earlier this week or end of last week, saying that he feels that this means, look, that Chris Gowan, the lawyer, must have somehow interceded. Someone inside the government apparently tipped off Awan's lawyer, Chris Gowan, that a reporter was digging around for information on the Capitol Police's suspicious mistake involving the mishandling of evidence. Gowan, a former, I think they're talking about me.
Well, you know, there you go. So you ought to reach out to Tom Fitton.
I have in the past, and he didn't want to talk to me.
I'll see what I might be able to help you with.
That is crazy.
Right, but I mean, this is really serious stuff. I mean, I don't understand. Again, it goes to risk profile. I don't understand how the Awans had so many customers among the Democrats in Congress. I mean, and why nobody sat and said, now, wait a minute, why are we letting these Pakistani nationals with deeply suspicious, you know, problems in their backgrounds, all the financial issues and other issues, why are we turning over the secrets of the House of Representatives to people who very likely are tied into the Pakistani security services, the ISI? Why are we doing that? And you know, the relations now with Pakistan are horrible.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
And we talk about, you know, the risks of Iran being a nuclear state. Pakistan is a nuclear state. And I've been there twice. I'll never go there again. It's a horrible place.
Here's one of their favorite sons walking away from me on the street as I ask him what he was hiding in the shed at 4809 Sprayer Street.
It's one of your great moments.
I think so. I mean, no one else is asking this guy the question, and this is Jesse Silva, I think, who tells me to go call Mr. Goodman, and I had to remind him that I'm Mr. Goodman.
Are you the real Mr. Goodman?
Well, I think he's just, my very appearance made these two men very uneasy. You know, Winograd, whatever this guy's name is, Jesse here, was not even able to keep his thoughts straight as to who the partner in his own law firm was and who I was. He told me to call Mr. Goodman, Mr. Gowan, and when I call Gowan, he tells me I'm disseminating fake news. This is the video that everyone should watch. Hidden network topology at 4809 Sprayer Street. It's in this video.
That sounds like a master's degree thesis.
Well, I mean, in this video, we revealed this Cox cable internet router, which showed that there was, unknown to the renter, there was a high-speed internet connection at the home. You can see the box plugged in. You can see the coaxial cable and the RJ45 cable. This led to a locked shed on the property. The Capitol Police have accused him of warehousing congressional data. I mean, look, Laurel and I spoke about this for quite a while. The reason we chose to take it, or I should say, she chose to take it to the Capitol Police, was because Debbie Wasserman Schultz had gotten into that argument with Matthew Verderosa, and it seemed to me, why would she be arguing with the guy if they had control over the Capitol Police? Let's bring it to them. I think if the FBI had the evidence, she would just be like, hey Andy, can you bring that to the party later and we'll destroy it with all the other Blackberries and laptops.
I've got some leftover bleach bit.
Right.
Can we just go into the slides?
Yes,
we
sorry.
we weren't done with them.
No, I wasn't trying
It's okay. So this is interesting. People have been talking about a blue wave. I have it in blue there, a Democratic wave, and experts, political experts at the Washington Times, if you scroll down, I just have to hit not this time. If you scroll down that a little bit, you'll see that there are people talking about, actually, it looks pretty good for the Republicans in the midterms already. And again, we're 5.5 months out. A lot can happen in 5.5 months.
Yeah.
If you have to hit click to read more. And it says 50-50 is, yeah, wondering. 51% are convinced that high-level federal enforcement officials tried illegally to stop Donald Trump from getting elected.
Yeah, well, I think definitely public opinion is starting to be swayed somewhat, or at least I would hope.
Well, and I think what this means, why this is relevant to the elections, I think it is absolutely the case that in midterm elections people vote less frequently. They're not driven to the polls. This could be a different period, you know, because Donald Trump could whip things up and say, listen, here's what I'm going to accomplish for you in 2019, okay? We're going to make the individual tax cuts permanent. You think I could do that with a Republican and with a Democratic-led Congress? You want a good reason to get up out of your couch and go to the polls? That's it. I'm going to make your tax cuts permanent. What does that mean? That means it's going to be easier for you to finance your house, save up for college, do what it is, go on a special vacation, take care of your parents, take care of your children.
Start a business.
Start a business. I'm going to do that for you, assuming we retain control of the House, and I'll do even more if we build our majorities in the House and the Senate. That's going to be sort of I don't have no inside knowledge, but that's a guess, an educated guess of what the message will be over the course of the next 5.5 months with Donald Trump. And people are going to look at that and say, you know what, I kind of like a higher paycheck and having some money. And this is good. So I actually believe that Donald Trump has substance in his message, whereas I couldn't believe this last week. They must have been drinking a lot of like some kind of Kentucky bourbon, or I don't know what they were doing, but saying the genius idea out of the Democrats was that their motto for the election in November is, we're going to drain the swamp. Huh? So you're resigning, Chuck? Maxine, you're all going to resign? That's the message? Huh? Anyway. We're also beginning to see, which is a good thing, more scrutiny on this issue of higher education costs, which are completely, this is John Stossel, who's a wonderful human being.
Oh, he used to be on 60 Minutes, 2020?
Yeah, and now historically, I don't know what this is. Anyway, but this is a very interesting article, and he's always ahead of the pack here.
Making mustaches great again.
Making mustache. He's far older than you might think.
Hidden by the mustache.
He's in his 70s.
Well, he was on 70s?
Yeah.
And that's a current photo? I mean, yeah, he was on 2020 or 60 Minutes or whatever when I was in high school.
Yeah. But, when you look at it, he's saying when he went to tuition back then, it was $2,000. Now it's $50,000. This is just tuition.
Wow.
Okay?
And how does that compare with inflation?
Way higher.
Why is
Way
that?
higher.
Why
Well,
is
it's very simple. It's one of the points. One reason I'm going to go on this, my next crusade. You have a confluence of factors. You have as a famous person, I think his name's Thomas Carlyle, from memory. said that if you teach a parrot the words supply and demand, you have an economist. It's that simple. Economics is all about supply and demand. So you have a massive supply of people around the world who buy into the theory that if you go to a brand name American university or international university, you have a better than average chance of far outperforming your peer group when it comes to income, right?
Is that still accurate
I don't
today?
think it is today, but way back when it was. So if you're a smart person and you get into a brand name school, it's worth it, right? But now the definition of brand name has shifted. You have universities that are not truly brand names anymore charging $50,000, and you have, instead of the reason you would hire somebody from an elite university is they had great professors who were teaching you valuable things, whether it's actually facts or how to think rigorously. That's a benefit you used to get. Now you're taught mush. You're taught how not to think,
Right.
how not to embrace.
How to hit people with bike locks and be an Antifa.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone badly awry here. And it's good that people like with a person like John Stossel with his standing and platform are making an issue of it. It's going to take me longer to get to the fore to make an issue of it, but I intend to make a big issue. Not everybody should go to these universities. I'm very dissatisfied with Yale and Harvard, having attended both places, a century ago, or in the last century. I'm very disappointed with the way in which it's gone since then. And there are no excuses for these places. I mean, they have tremendous endowments. They have every advantage. They shouldn't be going awry. And the worst thing you could do is to sadden to shoulder our young people who go to these universities. You used to have an advisor, and an advisor would say, well, look, Charles, I mean, you got some student debt, and you might not want to take, a major in basket weaving and stuff that you're never going to get a job to pay off your student loans. I mean, you get some guidance on that. I mean, if you're a billionaire and you want to major in basket weaving, go for it. But if you got to earn a living, they're not.
Somebody somewhere has cornered the market on baskets because everybody else is poo-pooing the weaving.
Exactly. Probably 3D printer. But
Exactly.
so this Tommy Robinson case is quite sad to see it in England.
Disturbing.
But interestingly, the blacklist has been lifted.
What do you mean?
So the English, there's a situation in England where the government can say, don't cover this, and the press is obligated not to cover it. That blacklisting, or whatever you call it, has been lifted.
Really?
Yeah.
So Tommy Robinson goes to jail for 13 months and then they decide what he did was okay?
Well, again, these are not our values, as Barack Obama was fond of saying, and it's important to remember that in the UK doesn't have unbridled freedom of press the way the U.S. sort of has unbridled freedom of press, or has more freedom than in the UK. And I think, England, is despicable what happened over there on this matter. And, in an age where the individual today has so much greater access to information, to analytical tools, to the ability to think for him or herself. To think that in 2018 a once great government like the UK would do this on a controversial topic at a time where sanctuary cities in the north of England are not working out so well for the people in the UK.
It's a scary thing, Charles, because Tommy Robinson has literally done nothing differently than what I or Laura Loomer.
Well,
I mean, I ran up to Imran Awan and started asking him questions. In America, right. He's basically just asking these guys who, do you feel good about doing this? He asked the police. Oh, no, sorry. He said something to the guy who was being, tried for rape or grooming children, and it's literally no different than something Laura or I would do. And like no trial for Tommy Robinson, just thrown in jail.
Well, and think about what's going on in Sweden.
You're right.
Right, exactly. So this is a bad sign. So these societies that want to tell the United States how to run themselves, why don't you fix your own society first, and get about the business of not only paying your 2% of GDP for the defense of NATO,
Yeah.
but why don't you make the back payments as well?
That's expensive.
So we'll close then. Actually, for me, it's a hopeful sign. If you live in Europe, it's not so hopeful. I think the Eurozone is past the tipping point at this point. We have the UK is going to leave. This idea that you got to keep voting until the globalists get the result they want to see.
Yeah. But didn't it already? I mean, is there still a doubt that they're going to?
Yeah,
leave?
they're still trying, but now with the decision in Italy and with the evident success of the United States going a different path, I do think the days of the large Eurozone are finished. And I also think it's going to be increasingly be in the interest of smaller countries to say, why do we want to pay for this mess? So you don't want to be the last big economy in the Eurozone. You want to get out soon. And it'll soon be, I think we'll start seeing, especially given this assault that the United States is launching properly against countries who would still support Iran and trade with Iran. The combination of the growth of this economy, the change in our attitude towards high taxes and exhaustive regulation, the fact that we are a deep market and most likely the most important export market for any country in the world is the United States, not China. We're going to see, I think, a change in attitudes, assuming Trump does succeed in the midterm elections here and does not get impeached. We're going to see a radical shift here as more than one European nation says, you know what, actually, we're done with this. Let's do it, we like the English-U.S. trade treaty. Let's get a French-U.S. trade treaty. Let's get a German. Forget this idea of sending everything through Brussels. So these are big developments. We're going to have, I think, a busy summer. I hope Congress will stay in session this summer and actually do some work.
What's the likelihood that that'll happen?
I hope it's high.
I think that's not going to happen.
No.
It's interesting, Charles, to see how much time it took to get to the actual news on this CNBC page. And there was like a lengthy ad. It wouldn't even let me look at it on the browser with the ad blocker running. So I think people really should consider how much of their time is wasted when they're looking at a site like CNBC, which is, free, versus coming here to Crowdsource the Truth, where they get a 2-hour broadcast chock full of quality Charles Ortel information.
And Jason Goodman.
And right, I don't think people realize the amount of communication that you and I are doing, the time that's spent in getting all this stuff together, and it just sort of feels like this broadcast on YouTube that's for free, but it is really important, particularly it's the end of the month. It's very important for regular viewers of Crowdsource the Truth to become sponsors on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or if you don't like Patreon, become a one-time sponsor with paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. Still can use cryptocurrency. Haven't spoken about this for a while, but there's a QR code right here on the video that people can point their phone at if you've got a cryptocurrency wallet. Send Bitcoin to Crowdsource the Truth as sponsorship. And it is very, very important for people to do that if they want to see the broadcasts continue, because I need food and things like that. And if I'm going to spend all my days, interviewing people and talking to people on the phone about what the next interviews will be and going through all kinds of information, this is my job. So hopefully people will do that. Was there anything else we wanted to cover, Charles?
Well, I think we've got don't we have a book event maybe coming up that,
You're writing a book.
I am writing a book, yeah.
That's an event. People will love that. All right.
All
Very
right.
good. And so on that note, Charles, thank you for closing in today, and we'll be back on Sunday for another episode, unless something monumental happens, and then, you and I are in touch every day, so we'll always have an opportunity to check in with everybody. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I will see you tomorrow.
Great.